I'm just extremely both intimidated and impressed, if that's the
Yeah.
form.
I mean, realistically, I could have written 1,000, but
Cool.
yeah, this is
Well,
what I came up
honestly,
with.
I kind of love. Here's the thing. I'm ready to go. I have my coffee. I'm
Yeah,
like,
me too. I got my Tim Hortons right here.
um,
I
Oh
didn't get a
yeah,
chance to make my coffee.
oh right, you're the Timmy Horton because you're in Buffalo.
yeah, of
You're like
course.
all the way up there. You're
Yeah,
almost to the Canadian border.
yeah.
Damn. Wow, Tim
Hell
Hortons.
yeah,
For a
dude.
second, I was like, am I talking to a Canadian right now?
A lot of people think I have that accent.
No, not even in that. I'm just like, I forget that Tim Hortons is on our side of the border when you
Yeah,
can click, you know what I mean? Like, because you don't see it anywhere else. Even like down here, you don't see it.
I feel like it's pushed a couple states though now. I think they at least have it in like Pennsylvania.
They
Pretty.
probably do. They probably do. But I
Yeah.
feel like, as we all know, America really runs on Dunkin'. So,
Oh no.
It does.
no, we're not going to get into that. Good God, the pitfalls and like conversational descents that our band has taken into like everything from what constitutes a sandwich to
Yeah.
you know God, don't open the can of condiment worms with certain people in my band either. If you mention like mayo or ketchup, yeah, there will be hell to pay.
Oh, so you hate ketchup?
No, not me. Just
Oh, I see.
other band members who I will not mention by name. But
So that's like a Philly thing. You just hate like certain condiments, and it's like a sin.
not really. Well, the Philly thing is we just like kind of hate everything a little bit. That's
Yeah.
the Philly thing.
Bunch of assholes up there.
Yeah, that is the old like batteries at Santa Claus thing. I like.
Yeah.
There's no way around that. You know what I mean? Like people have heard it. It exists. It happens. You know. But yeah, no. That's less of a. That's just me saying we'll quickly disintegrate into that, and we'll get to like one of 33 questions.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing the podcast for, by the way?
Dude, that's what's funny. I was looking at my Instagram story today, like the memories, and I think it was 1 year ago today that I picked up all the equipment.
Oh, cool.
Really?
Oh, that's
Literally.
well. Honestly, congratulations.
Yeah,
I'm truly even more honored to be
absolutely.
on the 1 year anniversary episode.
So, what have you been doing this past year to stay busy? Check out any cool movies?
Oh, honestly, well, I think I went down the rabbit hole of Netflix and streaming binges. I finally got around to watching Watchmen, which was incredible.
Oh, I love Watchmen.
To say the least. And honestly, it feels like there has been so much content digested, I'm sure, by the entire planet. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
Streaming
big time.
platforms did not have a bad year. Everybody else had a bad year, but
Mhm.
and well, to say that, I'll say actually most recently, kind of getting ready for the Oscars.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be on top of it this year and go through some of the category nominees and specifically pick the documentary category this year to make sure I watched all the nominees ahead of time.
Awesome.
And holy shit, I don't know how many of them you're familiar with, but we've watched all but one, honestly saving what I think will probably be the most crushing time,
Yeah.
documentary call time for the last one. But there is some incredible stuff in there. The mole agent is just, there's too many feels to even relate to right now. We don't have the time, but I've been watching those recently and it's been incredible. Yeah.
I haven't seen any of the docs, I don't think, but I saw Nomadland and Minari.
Watched Nomadland, also like a
Very good.
weird faux documentary kind of
Yeah.
take. Thought it was really cool, and she is incredible as an actress. So yeah, no, I shout out to that movie. That was great.
And I just watched Pieces of a Woman like 2 nights ago. That's the one with Shia LaBeouf. Very
Oh
good.
yeah. Oh, I don't think I've seen that actually.
I don't think that's up for best pick, but it's definitely nominated for some
I
awards.
should put that in my queue. Love
Yeah.
LaBeouf.
You get to see his, you know what? So
Oh wow, the
Little
real
thing.
the real Boof.
the real LaBeouf.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah.
honestly, I'm not even mad at you that you blew that surprise.
I blew his
Spoiler
cover.
alert! Deep spoiler alert! You got to throw that in post
Hell yeah.
for people that haven't seen it. But well, cool. I'll check that out. Yeah.
Cool. So I really enjoy the cover you worked on recently with I Call Fives for the Saves the Day song At Your Funeral. How do you enjoy the process of making that song with that band?
Yes. Well, those lovely lads.
The best.
First of all, yeah, have a lot of history with them. Very fun as coming up and being a Jersey band, like the tri-state area friends. So it was really cool when they reached out to me and said that they were going to start making music again. and I was honored that they reached out and thought highly of me to come into the studio, and it kind of worked out too, because it was obviously a year where it's a little tougher to travel, and I'm actually our spot is pretty close to the guys, or at least some of them. So it was a little easier to navigate that, the logistic end of it. And as far as doing the song stuff, I mean, who doesn't love that song? It has such a
Classic.
a rich history and place in the canon of pop punk nostalgia tracks. So just to like get to listen to it and do it and is fun. It's almost like actually, ironically enough, I had some interesting tinges, having also done a number of records with Steve Evans, who has in fact tracked that band and many of those records years ago. So there was a little bit of me where I was like, man, I don't want to fuck this up either. But and even, being friends with those guys and having toured with them, and their drummer for years, Dennis, lives in Philly and is a good friend of mine and such a sweetheart. So it was an interesting process, but ultimately just fun, right? Anytime you get to do a cover, it's a little bit less of the pressure of conjuring up something completely original and second guessing yourself. It's almost like you're already invested emotionally in the song, so it's almost like it's a different part of you that you're accessing to do it. And we had some fun and took a few production liberties very subtly, while still trying to like pay homage to the ethos and old school qualities of that recording in that era. So it was great. It was a ton of fun. They're great players. Jeff's an awesome singer, and we had a blast. And I'm looking forward to doing hopefully doing more with them in the future. Would be an exciting possibility. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So
Did you check out his game stream yet, Jeff Todd's?
he's told me all about it. The Jeff Todd.
Jeff Todd live.
Yes, I have seen it as not much of a gamer, admittedly.
Yeah, me neither.
But a deep respect for gamers. I love it. So I've checked it out a little bit here and there, and I wholly support him. And we've had some really cool conversations about what he's doing, and super excited for that too. It's funny where life takes everybody, and so back and being like, you got the fam, you're doing the game thing, and he's still writing up a storm and still doing it, and still has a voice like an angel. So I support the gaming or whatever he does in his free time for sure.
Did Saves the Day reach out and say how they liked it, or no?
I haven't even, honestly, I think probably because of COVID, I haven't even talked to them. Dennis hit me up randomly, not in regards to any of that, but about looking for insight or advice on soundproofing a new practice space room at his house.
That's fun.
I passed that along, but yeah, man, I miss him. I miss those dudes. I know Arun and all of them are doing really cool stuff down in Nashville and have studios and are such good players. And Chris is always going to just be creating in some capacity. So I don't know. I haven't asked them, but I hope they dig it. Or honestly, they could also tell me, enough's enough with that song. We've had to play it at the, you know what I mean? They could also have that relationship with it, which I could, I guess, relate to a little bit.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, I can't stop listening to it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. It was really cool. And Michael, Mr. Michael Dominic Kennedy of Wonder Years percussive fame, did actually cut drums for the songs in the studio. So that was fun to work with him outside of the Wonder Years capacity on a project, as well as a little side note. Yeah.
Probably less pressure too, right? A little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. It's weird. It's like, I think, we hold things a lot tighter, at the chest from a creative standpoint, when we're in our band, and we're so used to the working dynamic between the two of us in that regard, that I think it's interesting to see the relationship change, and me be doing wearing a producer hat, and him playing more of I'm here to make some hot fire on the drums, and just what are we doing, right? So it was cool. That was definitely a fun element of it too. I like him, and he he is just what a creative force.
It's a monster.
He really is, my friend. Yeah.
So, was there really going to be a Wonder Years I Call Five split at one point, or no? Because I heard there was.
Where are you getting that information from?
Some guy named Kyle Tedesco.
Oh my God.
Yeah, some guy from the past.
Honestly, I can't remember. It sounds like something that obviously you could imagine could have been like talked about by
Yeah.
who and at what like degree of seriousness. I don't know.
That's funny.
But my memory on stuff like that is not always great. But again, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised with how intermingled we were many years ago if that was a thought that was brought up. So this is the best you get, though, is me working with them now this many years later, I guess.
And do we plan to see you working with them more for the upcoming stuff, or no?
We do. I mean,
I kind of figured that.
Like I said, I love them, and I think they're writing some really cool stuff that the public has yet to hear, but I have maybe had a little sneak peek at, and it's very cool. Yeah,
I may have had a sneak peek too.
They haven't lost a step. Yeah.
Hell yeah. So you and a couple guys run True Level Studio up in Blackwood, New Jersey. How has it been being able to create projects there, and how can people find out more information on it?
Right. Yes. So Blackwood is just like a hop, skip, and a jump right across the old Walt Whitman Bridge. So it's pretty much in Philly, like right outside. And it's honestly been incredible. So a couple years ago, I realized that in downtime off the road, in between Wonder Years writings and records, I, like you could probably imagine, have been, working on anything from just like random instrumental stuff to, getting in the mix with a couple other bands that, that have reached out or, had kind of crossed paths with and explored working with from a production capacity and recording capacity. And I realized I was like, man, I really love that. I love being on the other side of the glass in this. It's a different approach and still get that sense of creative fulfillment, but also a really powerful sense of fulfillment by seeing somebody else bring their vision and their art to fruition, and it's almost like a freeing thing where with Wonder Years stuff, there's a little bit more creative pressure to finish it off, round the corners and all this. And that's not to say that that I don't find myself very structured in trying to maintain every semblance of detail in the projects that I work on with other bands, but it's just a different thing, and I really love it, man. It's so cool. It allows me to think and work with bands outside of the thought process that has become like the Wonder Years machine in a way. And so it's really enriching. It's helped me, I think, evolve creatively, kind of jumping around, getting in the midst of other bands where they're at in their process and trying to help. And ultimately, I think I've, over the last couple of years since we've been there and been working out of that space, found that it's also really interesting opportunity for me to kind of pass along all the little like nuggets that have come in and floated in, via successes and or mistakes that have been made in some ways, just general life experience of, spending 15 years in a band with the same people, we're very lucky to have that opportunity. So the studio itself was a place that I just, serendipitous meeting of two other people, my two partners, Adam and Tom, who are extremely talented engineers, songwriters, creatives, and also acousticians, and very well versed in the artistic and scientific end of all of that stuff. And I had known Adam, who played in the band Sorority Noise, as well as a number of other bands around here. He was a Jersey kid, and Tom is an incredible Philly engineer doing some amazing and very innovative stuff in this recording scene here. And I was looking for a spot to start doing mix work and production work outside of the home and outside of other, commercial studios, a spot to call my own and a spot to kind of finish off projects with other bands. And, it was just this. I happened to be jamming with Adam right there, and called some other people together, and he was like, "Well, I run this like acoustic consulting company with this guy Tom. Like, you should meet him. I think you'll like him. You'll be a good dude." And I mean, I mean, the rest is history. And that was, 3 years ago when we came in, they designed the space, and we all put our heads together of what we wanted out of it, and how we could make it functional. Found an existing commercial facility in Blackwood that had some free space, and we knew the owner, and was willing to have us come in and make a third room and be like a third partner in that space, and make it our own. So it's been awesome to work out of in that capacity, and have a space, especially over the past year, as you can imagine, where I have a place outside of the home that we can go safely, isolated, and work on projects, and not lose our mind staring at a wall at home.
Exactly. No, I really appreciate that about you. You're a hardworking dude, constantly working.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think, it's sometimes maybe too much if you ask certain people that live with me, but
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it's like sometimes it's tough to put down the phone and
it's
just
tough.
be present. So that's that work play balance, work life balance is also a thing that I think not suffered, but was it was even tougher in some ways to grapple with this year. But still finding our way every day through that.
So going back to the humble beginnings, when the band started, you guys would use gear from other bands and play a single joke song and get off the stage. You went and recorded Get Stoked on It in 10 days and released it without any intention of it sticking. How did this help the progression of the band over time? And had you not done this, do you think the band would have ever taken off?
So I've actually been asked this question a couple other times in a couple of different formats, but I think the general consensus of an answer that I've come to is, we did not give a fuck. And I think that helped us not hold on to it too tightly or take it too seriously. I've seen a lot of bands, and admittedly a lot of, some of them very talented too, where they put out one song and they're just like, everything's got to be perfect. I got to get my blue steel face, and like, we've got to have matching, this is a very low key to matching, like we came up in the MySpace era. So it's like, we gotta have matching key necklaces, and like, your hair's gotta be this way and your hair's gotta be this way. And you've gotta be the one that has the long hair. Shout out Ed, like you'd be perfect. You'd be a huge asset in that era. 'Cause not everybody was able to grow and get that kind of length and volume, But I think for us, doing the, hey, let's pop on, we were just part of a scene, part of a community, other friends, spread out, among like a couple neighboring high schools. We were all playing in other bands that I think we were like, taking seriously, so to speak, heavy air quotes on that. Like
the Premiere, right?
So a couple of the dudes were in the Premiere. Michael and I were in a band called Bellwether for a while. Josh was in a couple other bands. I mean, even earlier, we were all in like weird ska cover band amalgamations even. And those were, I think, all the bands, not necessarily the ska band, but there's some of those bands we were like, we're writing songs that we, believe in and whatever, and trying to play shows and get fans and all that stuff. And it's the unlikely candidate. It probably should have just stayed to just one joke song and get the hell out. And here we are 15 years later talking about it. So I don't know.
Who had the idea for the artwork of Get Stoked?
Honestly, that's, again, talk about not taking things too seriously or letting an inside joke run away with itself. That's probably a collective effort on that should have been squashed long before it got to that point, but it didn't. And now that's a thing. And again, I look at it and we relate to it, and some people are like, why don't you play songs off it? It's like, have you heard it? It's like, could you see any of those songs working in the general set list?
Right after Orange Grove, just come out with Fruit Punch.
Can honestly say yes to that, then I'd question your overall sense of writing an entire set, so so I don't know.
Kellogg's never sued you? I'm kidding.
Oh God.
No, actually, from a lawsuit standpoint, no, we didn't have any trouble. There was a band many years ago that I think had a similar name and had been approached by somebody, and realistically with a threat that probably didn't hold much legal weight, but I think they were mad about it because they were like, well, what the fuck, how come you guys get to be, and the answer is I don't know. The answer is I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. Like we didn't going to be a thing, and at this point, I don't know. That's also not me challenging anybody to say anything, but
so you weren't scared and you weren't sorry.
we wouldn't say that. Next question.
So it's pretty much common knowledge that the Upsides was written when Dan was depressed and constantly listening to sad songs. What did it take as a band to lighten the mood and make it a real debut record that put the band on the map and still lives up to this day?
Yeah, I mean, just like any other of our records, I think you see a progression and evolution of where we are and snapshot of where we are in our lives, that it kind of mirrors and through the stories that Dan tells in the lyrics, and Upsides was no different. I think that was a record, and that was the first time we were trying to put together a cohesive batch of songs based on the things we were living through, the times we were living through, and the lens that you view things through at that age. And Upsides is no different. I mean, it's funny too, where some of those songs and the subject matter, and especially as the records go on, gets a little heavier. Life gets heavier, right? So there's no secret to that. Sometimes it's as simple as that, and the things you think about and the challenge you face get a little bit more complex. So the music and lyrics and stories and everything kind of did as well. But with Upsides, I think, we were still pretty young. We had done some touring, done a couple full US runs. And so I think it was all still very new to us, though, getting out on the road, and especially right when Upsides came out, where we were excited and still had that youthful zest, if you will. So it's like you get in the van and you're just like, driving through the desert, the AC doesn't work, you're sweating it out, everybody's in their underwear, like it's a gross scenario. The mood lightens itself a little bit, so it was pretty easy for us anyway to not let things run away and take too serious, because I felt like you always had that humbling moment where you're just like, the second you're just like, oh my God, we're like crushing it, we're about to ascend, and then you're just like, yeah, but I'm still peeing on the side of the road in Joshua Tree, and and living in a van, sleeping on a baby mattress, like so there was I think a good balance from all that.
I like how in Melrose Diner that there was like a Raw WWE spoof. Which of you guys in the band are wrestling fans?
Myself and Dan definitely were, actually. So we kind of both lost touch with it, and I think like early on, when we started touring, maybe probably Upsides era and even before, kind of got back into the storyline. I watched it a lot when I was a kid. Actually, interestingly enough, my old Italian grandmother was a big wrestling fan in like the 80s and 90s. So I think somehow she passed that along to me. But I had obviously, lost touch with it for a decade or two, and we kind of got back just into it because it's a soap opera, right? It's a continuous storyline. Just like anything else, for the same reason that I think people, sports fans love football season. It's because it's something you can count on, and something that progresses, and something you can go and root for and be entertained by every weekend on a consistent basis. And I think wrestling was kind of the same thing, especially when we got out on the road and on tour and had some people traveling with us that were also kind of into it. And I think that's probably how it came back into our lives for a little bit, and I have again fallen off. Don't watch it so much, but we've been lucky enough because of that, to cross paths with and become friends with some of those guys and gals that either are on the pro circuit or semi-pro circuit, and either way insanely talented, the things that they do. We
Definitely.
a couple of years ago, I think it was for Dan's birthday, a bunch of us went up to went up to North Philly and basically did a like a wrestling coach session with some like pro wrestlers at an indie ring up there, you know, that kind of taught us the basics of how to take some bumps, like run the ropes and do some stuff. Let me tell you, all of us walked out of there real fucked up.
Oh no.
You would not realize it. That mat is hard as fuck. It looks
Oh yeah.
like a little trampoline. No, imagine getting slammed
Oh, it
onto
kills.
plywood. Like it's like if you fall the wrong way, that was my big takeaway from that. I was like, I can't even like run and pretend to get clotheslined without hurting myself. And these dudes, like all of a sudden, everything, the acrobatic elements of this stuff, where I'm just like, that dude pretty much just like landed like flat on his back from like 20 feet up, doing that moonsault and like botching it or whatever. I'm just like, I have no idea how I haven't seen way more tragedy in this. And I mean, it just goes to speak to the professionalism of them. Really, it's that, you know, and so the conversations that we've had too are really cool. And I think getting to know them personally, some of them, has been interesting too, because the travel element of that circuit, and especially on the professional level, in a lot of weird ways mirrors the loneliness of being in a touring band. And especially early on, some of these you wouldn't think, but like some of these dudes are just getting in a rental car and driving from one city to the next, and then you're in a hotel, and yeah, you have like a couple other friends, but it also, like, even us, like, there have always been at least 6 of us, if not more, considering like crew and TM. So it's like, that's even sometimes lonelier for them in some strange ways. And learning that and like kind of bonding over some of that was also really interesting, and finding out those parallels between the two worlds. So, yeah.
So on the subject of Melrose Diner, I heard you guys don't really like that place. Is that true?
Honestly, I don't think I've ever eaten there.
Yeah, I just remember Dan saying at the Philly shows, he was like, "Don't go there."
Yeah, it was not. That was not in my neighborhood. That's not where I live.
Okay.
I can honestly say, I mean, I know of it and, you know where it is, but I don't think I ever ate there. So I don't know.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
All right. Dan has stated that Suburbia was somewhat of a grueling process to make, and that he was throwing up in the booth, and that you all had to do many takes to reach completion. But do you think Steve Evans being so hard on you guys made you better musicians? And would you consider you or anyone in the band a perfectionist?
First of all, I'd just like to stop and circle back to the phrase "many takes to reach completion." That was maybe that's some low hanging fruit there, but for a second I was like, that's a way that I've never heard it laid out before. Yeah, it was definitely grueling. And again, we were still pretty young at that time and still learning how to make records on a professional level. And Steve is somebody that, if anybody knows about his discography and the career that he's had, he works with an incredible amount of extremely proficient musicians, from guitar players to drummers, in a lot of like the technical metal and hard rock world and punk.
He did Every Time I Die is the Big Dirty.
A ton of Dillinger Escape Plan records, which, if anybody knows that band, try to wrap your head around what recording those guys is like,
And Snapcase. He did Snapcase.
Yeah. And he put us to work, and we love him for it. Right. It made all of us, every time we did a record, and specifically Suburbia being the first that we did with him, I think we came out of that process exponentially better at our instruments and understanding the concept and what it really takes to put down incredibly convincing and solid performances to make a record on a higher level. He was somebody who's like, I don't want to like edit the fuck out of this shit. He's just like, I want, he came up doing records the real way, like the non-Pro Tools way, and I think that's something that now has been baked into the ethos of our band, is being able to like make sure that it translates live, that we can nail it live. And every record we do with him, I'm sure came out even tighter. You can definitely ask Michael that. I mean, he tracking drums, and there's a lot of fast stuff. There's a lot of drumming on that record. And he would come back to the house after those sessions when they started getting in the weeds with tracking drums at the start of it. And he would be just like
bruised up.
bloody, battered, like blisters, calloused, and just exhausted. Like you saw it on his face. And at the end of it, when he was done tracking, he was like, he's like, I don't think I've ever been a better drummer. And now he had this like thirst where he's like, oh, I can like turn this up, like, you know, and I think that's really important with whatever you do is having somebody to
Push you.
to push you and also help you check in and understand where you really sit in the process and the hierarchy, you know. And we were like, oh, there's a lot of work that can be done. We thought we didn't think we sucked, but turns out there's some improvement here that we made, you know. And I'm glad we got that opportunity. A lot of people probably don't get that opportunity, and we're very lucky for it. And I think it has a lot to do with probably where we are now and how our live show comes off too. You know.
So how important is feedback from your peers been to you? How did it help with the band's success once you guys got the ball rolling?
Well, I mean, feedback's crucial to any creative process, I think, but also not letting it inform or overtake or dictate where like your true taste as a musician or as a songwriter goes. That's been a delicate balance that we've always tried to, you know. We first and foremost, we make music that we want to listen to, and always be that our guide. But we also, like you said, try to challenge ourselves. And sometimes in doing that, you will stretch slightly outside the bounds of what your entire 100% of your fan base really likes, you know? And interestingly enough, the bigger we got as a band, you know, the further the reaches of your fan base stretch, and you have some people come into your community and your world that like the band for this one really specific thing, you know, and then other people that are like, nah, I like, you know, I like the huge like wall of sound, like bangers and like the like super fast skate punk stuff, and then others like, no, I like the soft, sensitive, emotional stuff. You know, and then there, you know, a lot of people appreciate, and we as a band try to deliver that balance, but sometimes we go about trying to push out stuff and realize that, you know, not in an intent to alienate people, but just as like a thing to be like, hey, we don't want to just keep writing the exact
something new,
record
yeah.
for you. We want you to kind of grow with us. So yeah, I guess that's probably the easiest way to say it.
And I like that because every album, it really is different. It's its own sound pretty much too. So it's cool to be able to go back to, you know, whichever one your favorite is. But, you know, I like seeing the progression for sure.
Yeah.
So there's not much to say about The Greatest Generation, as that is a near perfect album for you guys with not much necessary change. But I'm just curious, how did you guys go about constructing the I Just Want to Sell at My Funeral song?
Yes, Funeral. Have gotten a lot of comments and questions about this recently. You
That's
know,
your free bird.
yeah. Oh, geez, I don't know how to take that. You know, I guess the easy answer is that we've always been a band that kind of calls back or loves the idea of bands calling back and referring to themes and pulling from other themes. Anybody that's been with us for a while or has listened to multiple albums will probably hear a few of those little like Easter eggs and callbacks. And I think that song for us, because of the album and the weight that it was carrying, it felt like we had an opportunity to kind of do that, you know, and we weren't sure what that would necessarily look like, but we knew, you know, it might be a pretty ambitious task to set out on, but we were like, hey, if we really start to get into it and it feels too far off the deep end or whatever, then fine, but at least we tried. And yeah, I mean, I started like kind of looking back and taking like the musical moments that I thought hit really hard, and also like the lyrical stuff that tied some things into it. And it was definitely a back and forth of how to kind of curate that flow and energy, but it was a super fun project. And it seems like for a 7-minute song that, you know, could be very hateable for the current attention span of a lot of music fans, it seemed to have done okay by us. And I think people got it and appreciated the ambition behind it. Hopefully.
But that was a major collaborative effort though, right? I mean, Like,
Yeah. I mean, well, there's no way it wasn't, even just by the nature of the fact that certain themes from each one were all spawned from different places and different inspirations and throughout those songs, right? So one part from a song might have come from one person or one idea, and then the idea directly after it or that's kind of layered on top may have come from a different place and a different person.
mhm,
So in that way, yeah, I mean it was wholly collaborative, of course. Yeah.
mhm.
So for passing through a screen door, oh, sorry. For passing through a screen door, I wanted to know, like, what was the connection with all the footage from the 50s? Was it like in regards to like the massive changes from that era compared to today?
Well, I think the easiest way or the easiest explanation is just that I think typically that World War II generation is referred to as the greatest generation in a lot of literature and just that time period. So I think it's just reverential of the title in and of itself and how that relates to, how we were putting our spin on it in that way, and some of the ideas that Dan put forth in the lyrics. So yeah, that's where the imagery came from. It's conjuring up some stuff that related to that idea.
All right, sweet.
No Closer to Heaven sounded like a tough album to finish, as everyone wanted their input to be heard, which made the mix get a little sloppy in the process before the obvious tweaking to fix it all. How has this made things difficult with all the members wanting their role realized? And how did you guys overcome this for Sister Cities?
Interesting. Yeah. So the No Closer to Heaven mix thing is an interesting one. We had someone who I highly respect, and someone that's an incredible asset to the music community, especially the Philly music community in
Absolutely.
Phil Nicolo. And I think a lot of that was, we learned a lot of valuable lessons, as we do on every record. But with that one, it maybe comes down to communicating ideas and figuring out for us what we really wanted. And that was the only record that we actually ended up doing attended mix sessions where we were in the room. And I think it's very easy to get really excited when you're in the room. You turn up the mains loud and you're like, cool, yeah, let's go through and do some subtle tweaks and automation stuff. But again, what I can say to that is that was the only record that we were in the room, listening and making final decisions. Whereas every other record, we've all been on cans or the systems, whether it's at home or on tour, that we're used to, that we're familiar with. And as an engineer and producer and from a mixing standpoint, I think that's the first thing that I start to preach is like, listen, you don't have to go out and buy $2,000 headphones. Like, just get like a decent enough pair, which most people probably have anyway, whether it's for gaming or whatever. Start there, because you know what music sounds like, which is ultimately the biggest, I think the biggest hurdle is to have that familiarity, whether it's, if you're an engineer and you have a studio. For us, it's our room. It's, we jumped through a lot of hoops to construct a really even, balanced environment through treatment, dimensions and EQ modules. But like, that was I think maybe part of that, is that we were making decisions in a way, the whole band was there, but we weren't really hearing things on we weren't really listening to final mixes the way we've had before that and have since then. So I think that has a large part to play in it. Not necessarily that Phil is not in any way a talented engineer, and I mean his work obviously speaks for itself. It has done very big things clearly for him.
It's worked wonders.
Yeah. So I think that's maybe the biggest thing to pull out of there. And we still all love that record, obviously. And for me too, living in both of those roles, being a band member and a songwriter, but now also seeing, the very opinionated side of how things turn out sonically and, what they're trying to stack up against. I think I would like to believe that all like mixed decisions aside, that the songs themselves at their core will still translate for people. And even though people are like, well, I don't know if I love the way this record sounds versus record, it's like that's going to happen with any band, with anybody. It's all subjective, right? But I think how people relate to the songs and ultimately whether or not they feel what we were trying to convey with them, I would hope that that would still poke through a mix that they, maybe is not their favorite. So in that way, and that record is probably one of my favorites because I think the songs did things that really illuminated a whole new era for our band. So I found a place to not get lost in the weeds about, oh man, what if we mix this? What if we mix this? And if anything, being in a band for 15 years, it will teach you one thing: to let go of the what ifs, because there's no reason. It's like, cool, we'll learn from it. And maybe
try new things.
maybe we won't do attended mix sessions in a room that we're not familiar with,
So when it comes to like feedback from fans, then do you welcome that in, or do you try to stay away from it? Like in terms of reading reviews when it comes out, like an album?
No, I don't do a lot of that anymore, honestly. There was a time when I was like excited when I was like, oh my God, what are people saying on Absolute Punk? Holy shit, crazy. It's not that I don't care, it's just that you can't change anything, right? So I think who was it? I think it's Jeff Rickley, in an old interview talks about this thing, and we have now become firm believers about this idea. And I think as an artist of any kind, whether it's like in whatever medium, if it's visual art, music, for you, film, TV, right? You're all kind of crafting stories and putting ideas out there in varying degrees of abstract, right? So I think the way we've started to look at that is that the second you release an album or a song or, finish a painting and let it go, it goes in a gallery or, goes online, a movie, an episode of something, right? The second it gets released to the public, it's kind of no longer yours. It kind of ends that period after the creation of it, and between the creation of it and you finished it, have the masters back, and when it gets released, where that's the only time it's really like yours, as an artist, where you can like have that feedback, that relationship with it. Because once it goes out to people, the whole point of any art or music is to conjure up a reaction, right? So that reaction is more the art. And so, yeah, sure, that is kind of the feedback that's there. And so we are aware of that because that is the goal, that you're hoping it resonates with people and seeing how it resonates, but I think for us trying to understand that it's not going to resonate the same with everybody, and that's okay. And that's actually probably better because that means that we're still kind of being honest and trying to put something authentic out and not trying to make something that, casts the widest net. And I think that's okay. And I think all the bands that we've grown up listening to and loving, I think they all found a way to continue doing that,
So the songs on Sister Cities were written directly from pieces of Dan's tour journals. How did this idea come to fruition, and how different was the writing process? And how did all the interconnection of all the different areas and cities feed the overall message?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to describe that is we were kind of taking snapshots of areas and locations, and then, he would come to us with ideas, some that he, like he said, that he had already had from journaling while on tour and while traveling. And, we would be tasked with kind of coming up with something that felt like it fit the vibe, the location, the imagery for it. So it was a really cool exercise for us musically in that sense. And then, tying all of those themes together in a way, obviously that was a lot of lyrically, but then also understanding, trying to put each little story and vignette on a big grand scale and see how they fit together and kind of tie it all together with, the way we open a record and close a record, which is pretty, typical Wonder Years as well. So, yeah.
And you guys made a whole picture book for the release. How did you enjoy the overall reception to that?
That's awesome. I think that's become some of my favorite stuff. Even we just with the Suburbia anniversary release that we just did. I I loved seeing everyone's reaction when they were maybe surprised with some of the footage that we were able to conjure up in some of the photos. And it's uh, selfishly awesome for me because it's such a walk down memory lane to just look and be like, holy shit, we were so young, you know?
Yeah.
So I love it and get a kick out of it and a lot of fulfillment and a lot of enjoyment at that capacity. And then seeing other people really enjoy it too. We're a band that always wants to try to give as much to our fans, not just in music, but also in making sure they understand how much we appreciate the support that they give us. So anytime we put something like that out, and the Sister Cities book was a huge undertaking to sort through hundreds of thousands of photos. So it was all worth it to see how it came together for sure. Yeah.
When that Upside Suburbia re-release set came out, I was actually at the tire shop because my tire busted, and then I had to wait on buying it because obviously I didn't have too much money at the time, so that kind of sucked.
Oh, well, you mean you couldn't use just glue all 4 records together and use that as a donut, or?
That's true. I probably could have.
Uh,
I personally really enjoyed what you guys did with the Burst and Decay releases. What was it like stripping down those songs and giving them a new life? And who came up with that idea?
I mean, it was a collective idea. We always bounce stuff around like that, and we always do.
Yeah.
We've always done in stores, where we end up kind of treating songs like that, or the guitar players will get together and be like, okay, how do we translate this to make it work, on 3 unplugged acoustics, and whatever. And some of those, it's like you will have a PA, some you won't. So you got to really think dynamically about the song and figure out how it's gonna work in that environment. So that's, I think, the catalyst of, since we had been doing that and we had come up with a few, like, okay, we're gonna do the in-store version of Local Man, or we're gonna do whatever. So that was kind of the starting point and the stepping stone for that. And then we're like, well, what if we kind of did that, and took a larger amount of time and really got in there. And I loved that process and breaking stuff down. That for me is, especially at this point, it's such a cool opportunity to take a look at what you've already written and be like, well, how would me redo this now?
Yeah, that's very cool.
Kind of what we ended up with for the 2 songs, Breakless and Out on My Feet, that came out as part of that anniversary box set to commemorate it, where they were ideas that we had lying around from that time period. And then our older selves got a chance to step in the time machine and go back and finish those songs, but with everything we've learned in the last decade. So it's awesome. And Burst and Decay is in a lot of ways a similar process. Yeah.
So was Breakless and Out on My Feet, was that sort of like a boredom project during the COVID lull, or was this a plan that you guys set forth for a while?
We had them, and I think when you write a lot and you get up up to over you get beyond the 1 or 2 albums of material, you have a lot of stuff that you leave on the cutting board, even if it's just little fragments or whatever. And so these were 2 that I think we probably stumbled back across just in general a couple times, mining through what things are left in the vault. And I think they were always 2 that Dan liked, but never really knew what to do with, and never were like, well, I don't know if it fits on this record, or doesn't fit into the theme or the vibe or whatever. So I think this was an opportunity to resurrect those because of the nature of the re-release and the anniversary. So it was, in that way, it felt like they really fit because of how they were spawned and when they were spawned. So it was a cool opportunity to pull them out for that. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's probably why they came back up at this time.
So in the video for Out on My Feet, you guys were able to bring back the real life Hank mascot for his long awaited return. I'm pretty sure I remember hearing that the costume was in bad shape. Who was holding on to it all this time, and who fixed it up?
It's definitely not in good shape. That's for sure. I can tell you that much firsthand. But I will say, give a quick shout out. My old college roommate, her sister was actually as actually a fashion major, and we actually tasked her. We were like, hey, do you think there's a chance? She's actually the one that created that for us many years ago. And to her credit, for just kind of taking a stab at it and figuring it out. That thing has survived, as you saw. So, even though we maybe haven't treated it as nicely as it would like to be, having, made appearances on tours and stuff like that, and being worn by way too many sweaty grown men.
Who wore it on the Suburbia cover? Who's in that?
That's Josh. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Cat's out of the bag. Josh's out of the bag. And yeah, so it did hold up really well. So she did a good job, but it's pretty treacherous the way it's in there and put together. But I'll spare you all the gory details.
So who came up with the idea for Hank, and was it meant to be a marketing ploy? If so, it worked.
Yeah. I'm sure it wasn't like a marketing ploy. I'm sure it was
I know.
like, something. Well, so I'll say this, because if you look at, early 7-inches, a friend of ours, a great artist out of Philly named James Heimer, had created some of that early stuff in his style that we really liked. And the first 7-inch cover that I think he did for us was a group of pigeons all dressed up with a trench coat stealing a bike.
Okay.
He was kind of the first one that I think brought like the pigeon idea into the fold. And then we were like, man, that's so just perfect when it comes to Philly. It's like, it's
So
this
Philly.
bird that everybody fucking hates, but it's still, in spite of all of it, kind of just thrives in the city. And we were like, man, it kind of almost feels like the scrappiness that, we saw in ourselves, where it's just like, yeah, we're not always like the cool band or, or whatever, but like, we're still going to make these fucking songs and go out and play the shit out of them. And so I guess that was kind of where we were like, well, why don't we like take one of those like pigeon-esque figures, and we asked him, we were like, hey, can you like whatever? And then I think it might have been me. I honestly forget this stuff, but where we were like, we should like name it. And then we were like, well, what's like a cool, like very Philly, like blue collar, like my grandfather's name kind of thing. And I guess that's where Hank got thrown out. Sure. And he's taken on a life of his own.
Congrats on being one of the best marketed bands on the planet, from merch designs to stellar VIP tour packages. You guys really know how to sell your product. How do you come up with fresh ideas to always keep things exciting for the fans?
Well, thank you. That means a lot. And I would hope that everybody else feels that same way, because we do put a lot of time and effort into it.
Of course.
And I think really we try to always do our best to kind of over deliver and under promise, so to speak, if you want to talk about like marketing. But it really comes down to us trying to really keep in mind what things we think our fans would like to see, would like to hear about from us, and how we can serve that in some way, and also what things they haven't seen from some of their favorite bands before, and trying to get a little creative with that, whether it's the VIP stuff or even just, merchandise designs or releases and things that we think make it a little extra special for people, that it's not the same old rinse repeat of cool, here's another shirt, which, there is an artistry in that, like, releasing, even sometimes looking at yourself and remembering that first and foremost and above all, we look at ourselves as musicians and, to create music for people to listen to. But, it's also the way we make a living. And a lot of that does play into having a, pretty much a line of merchandise and design assets that go along with those things, that reinforce what we're trying to put across. So we put a lot of thought into it. And I appreciate those kind words from you about it.
Of course. Yeah. No, I love how you guys do the acoustic set with the VIP package, and you get to like take a picture with all the fans. I think that's super cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
So how do you keep the balance with the band and your personal life? What are your go-tos to center yourself and keep yourself humble on a daily basis with all the hard work you put in the music?
Yeah. Well, in the age of COVID, it's been at the very least a daily walk. I listen to a lot of podcasts, obviously, and now this one. And I think that's kept me kept me grounded and inspired, listening to other creatives, other people, and even then kind of going outside the sphere of music to get a couple really good podcasts that keep me tethered to the outside world, so that it's not just like create and, mine all of my energy and bandwidth to, produce things. And then I think, it's kind of taken a back seat, especially this winter, because gyms have been closed and everything. But on tour, especially in past years, trying to keep myself active and moving. I'd gotten into running a pretty decent bit, which if you asked high school me,
Oh, you run? That's sick.
I was pretty portly and overweight. Well, actually, at the current time, I don't. But
Yeah.
but as the weather gets nicer, gyms get back. Yeah, that's been something that I would never have imagined I would have stuck with, because as a kid, I was so horribly out of shape that I was like, this is the last thing. Why would anybody want to do this? It's horrible.
Yeah.
But I do find a nice clarity to it and release, putting on the right record or the right podcast. I think there's like a refocusing and recentering where it actually allows me to kind of either think really clearly, or it's like the equivalent of like the perfect, like the shower idea, the light bulb that goes on when you're, when your defenses are down and you're finally not like thinking about the pressure of having to come up with something. So I think running does that and kind of, just keeps the blood flowing, and just gets, especially in a time like now, get you out of the house for an hour, which is important. So that helps, but either on tour or not. And yeah, I mean, just staying motivated and grounded and engaged and inspired by people around you. I've been doing some really cool, fun stuff outside of even just like remotely working with bands and artists and producing and even doing a bit of like kind of coaching and almost like mentoring of and getting some feedback and seeing their ideas and how other people work. It's fun for me because it re-inspires me, because you never know what you're going to get, and no one person has all of the answers. So much of creativity is subjective, and so much of music in the modern era is kind of evolving so quickly. I think that's fun for me and helps me stay humble to be like, honestly, I would have never had that idea. That's a good fucking idea, so I try to go out and find that and engage with that as much as possible too. Yeah,
For sure. Hell yeah. So I've got a couple more like fun questions, and then we have like a little speed round, if that's okay.
cool. Yeah.
Being mindful of the time. Okay. Weirdest fan interaction you or any of the other members have had?
Ooh.
I hear a lot of people get stalked. Is that like a thing?
We've been lucky. I don't think we've ever been like, I don't know. Like, I also don't want to say it and like,
I know.
like
You don't
whatever.
wanna be a
But,
dickhead.
no, honestly, I will say, within reason, a lot of our fans are usually pretty respectful.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there have been times where just, everybody's like super excited and overstep a little bit or kind of acting out of character just because they're extra enthusiastic, which, yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But also understanding that for any band or musician, you're out on the road. Sometimes, you're allowed to have bad days too. And sometimes it's a little much, and that can very quickly get into some weird positions, which you never want, but sometimes you have to just be like, listen, you got to back up for a second. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but you got to back up. As far as specific occurrences or stories, I can't remember anything, luckily, that's too jarring.
Okay.
So sorry if I don't have a really
No worries. That's a
salacious
good thing. Yeah.
anecdote there. But yeah,
great.
I mean, every band says it that, oh, our fans are the best, but like we say it and we truly mean it, because
Yeah, I got
for
good
that
point.
exact reason, it's like everybody, they're just like, they're sweethearts and are just like, man, you guys are amazing. Like,
Yeah.
how can I, and
It's always a good energy at your shows too. Everyone's talking to each other before the show.
yeah, and we're really proud of that fact and love fostering that and encouraging that in any way we can, and obviously very adamant about making our shows as safe and comfortable of an environment for everybody involved as well is a big thing for us. But yeah, so there haven't been too many of that, but of course, if you do anything long enough, there's going to be some things thrown at you that you don't expect.
So I'm honored to tell you that at the 10th anniversary shows in Philly, I went to all three. It was amazing. Great job. I was the very first person to crowd surf when you guys hit the stage for night one, and I was also the very first person to get dropped by security.
Oh no!
I literally went up right on the first song, and they dropped me on like my head.
Yeah, the security thing is an ongoing thing. It's just honestly, just like with the fans things. So most of them, and there's a lot of them that really care about what they're doing, and it's just every couple shows you get some guys that are just phoning it in, or especially we've been on tours where we're playing early in the bill. They're not expecting like a large reaction, and so they're not ready for it, and we do our best to kind of brief security and get on the same page. But, sometimes it's a very physical, almost combat scenario down there with everybody like on the floor. So you can imagine, not in any way saying that some unfavorable actions or lack of actions are justified, but sometimes frustrations and tensions get boiled over, and we're the only ones that see it from our vantage point. And, it's for us to let any of that go by. So yes, I'm sorry that happened to you. And I can unfortunately say,
oh no, it was awesome. I loved it.
You're not the only one that has been dropped by security. And because of that, we try so hard to make it a point at every show to make sure that the head of security and everybody know exactly what we're looking for and how to keep people safe and do a good job the right way. So
no, I'm not bummed that I got dropped. I'm just bummed that they lost that drone footage.
I know. Well, yeah, it would have. Yeah, I mean, we still have some of that footage laying around. Actually, I think I just found like a cell phone video.
Oh hell yeah!
Recently that I threw up on my Instagram of that. So that was like a cool thing where occasionally I'll see things crop back up in like the time loop stuff. But well, I'm glad you got up there and you're okay.
Oh, that was a great weekend, dude. I loved it. So on July 5th, 2005, you guys had your first practice and you wrote the song Buzz Aldrin, the poster boy, for second place. What more can you tell us about that day? Probably hard to remember that.
I mean,
16 years ago.
Yeah, we were at Michael's in Michael's parents' basement, where Michael and I's previous bands had practice.
Yeah.
I know we had talked about having another friend of ours, Mike, at the time come over. I guess he was unavailable. Matt Brash, I think, came into play. So that's how that portion of the lineup came to be. And I don't know. I mean, I think, again, like I said, we weren't taking it too seriously, which was nice.
Yeah.
I think things like, there was a micro Korg involved. And I think things like, Motion City, who was
hell yeah,
coming up and big at the time, that name was probably thrown around as like a catalyst for like maybe something like this,
That actually makes sense.
Yeah. So other than that, I mean, I don't think anything too groundbreaking happened, because it wasn't for a couple years until we like started trying to like, really give it some serious thought on a large level. Yeah.
So tell us about your coaching sessions. How can somebody book a session with you?
Yeah, well, so the studio website, truelevelstudio.com, is an easy enough way. There's a tab on there for the artist development stuff, and just like a quick form you can submit, and I'll get back to you. I mean, honestly, we're kind of in the era of just like, or hit me up on Instagram. Or through my website, which is just CaseyCavaliere.com. It comes in different ways. Sometimes, like I said, a lot, the origin of it was really kind of born out of bands and artists that I was already working with at the studio, making music with. And then once the music was finished up, it was kind of the next progression of like, they would come back and be like, hey, I've got a question about this, or what are your thoughts on how to release this, or how can we kind of brand this a little better, or anything like that. So eventually I just kind of started structuring it out by like, all right, well, come in, before the next session, or after the next session, we'll stay an extra hour, and we'll kind of talk through some strategies and see what advice I can lend. And then when the pandemic hit, I was like, well, I can't necessarily do the studio stuff and be there in the studio with clients right now, but I can do that portion of it remotely. And yeah, I've been doing it in that regard for over a year now, and it's been awesome to see a couple bands, even how they've grown over the entire year and where they've gone, just like from a thought process and understanding who they are and who they want to be, and making the music and everything in between and releasing it. So it's exciting, and it's kind of gearing up. But yeah, if anybody's interested in that regard, yeah, that's you can hit me up on any one of those, or just message me on Instagram, and we can set up a time to chat and explain more about it, and see if there's a way to help.
So what's your favorite of all the riffs you've written for the Wonder Years?
Ooh.
What's the one?
Ooh. I was just thinking about this actually. Washington Square Park comes to mind, and
I was just about to say that.
maybe only because I was just talking about touring in Europe with somebody, and talking about like strange crowd reactions, of which the UK and Europe definitely far and away have the most unique general collective group reactions, I think, that have caught us off guard in a good way.
Yeah.
Over the years. But somewhere in mainland Europe, one crowd, but overall, like, I think it's happened more than once, which is why why it sticks out, where the beginning of that song obviously has the hits and starts out with that riff. And most crowds, you're like, okay, cool, this is the sing-along part. They know the chorus, they know this lyric, they sing along. That was the first time that I had heard an entire crowd sing a riff, maybe louder than the actual riff. So that was an interesting one, and stuck with me, and just kind of looked around and be like, are they singing the riff right now? Like, 'cause it's kind of, as you can imagine, it's a quick one, so it's kind of incoherent too. If you have like hundreds of people singing it all at once, it kind of becomes a blur. But I think we were like, no, that's what they're singing, that riff. Like,
that's funny.
So that was very funny. So that's probably just because it led to that live show aspect. Probably that. Yeah.
Okay. Biggest goals for 2021, and then we'll do the speed round.
Ooh.
I'm just curious, what's on your mind?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'd love to continue growing the coaching stuff that I'm doing, because that's been so crazy illuminating and fulfilling for me to find a way like that to give back and take what I've learned and the gifts that I've kind of been given from people on the way up that have taken time with me and showed me the ropes and lent some perspective and feedback, and kind of pass that forward on the side of Wonder Years, as well as I want to keep making music anywhere and everywhere as travel starts to be a little easier. Obviously, I'm not going to get into specifics, but Wonder Years, as always, has some pretty interesting music making goals for the year, which I'm very excited about. And in the midst of that, I want to continue like producing and working with some cool stuff. Even in the last couple months, I've started working with a handful of artists that stylistically really run the genre spectrum. Yeah. So just kind of welcoming anything and everything. I mean, obviously my heart lies with a lot of the punk stuff and, the big rock guitar based emo stuff. So I'm always here to have a conversation with a band that wants to explore that and grow that side of themselves, but also just anything from like the super pop world all the way. Even before we logged on, I was listening to Bieber's new album and and everything in that world. I just like, not only do I love a good song, first and foremost, but I am so, especially spending time making music, engineering stuff, and um, working in the post production and mixing capacity of music making has given me such an extended love and appreciation for a lot of modern pop music and the techniques and where technology has allowed that to go. So I'd love 2021 to see what kind of stuff comes my way. So if anybody has a project like that or wants to get weird, I am super here to make something real different as well. So that, that's a goal, and just make as much music as I can, both as from myself and with other people, and collaborating in that way. So yeah, I mean, that's a lot. There's some other stuff, but I'm trying also not to spread myself too thin, because I have some other things, but are at the very, very, very early stages. So it's not even worth throwing them in the mix just yet, but all very exciting stuff, and feel very optimistic about this year as opposed to the one that is in the rear view. So
yeah, we're gonna forget about this last year. Well, I'm looking forward to it. That's really sick. You got a lot of shit coming up. So here's a little speed round.
Okay.
Bunch of bullshit questions. Favorite The Wonder Years song?
Favorite The Wonder Years song?
Yeah, I don't know why I even put it like that. It's just said Wonder Years.
Wonder Years song. Damn, and I'm sure I've been asked this 1,000 times, and it somehow never. Yeah, I'm somehow always frozen by it. I think because I probably overthink it, but going with a gut reaction, probably. I really do love There. However, I will say I was talking about this with a band that I worked with recently, and I really love The Bluest Things on Earth. So if we're talking about playing a song live, I know that's not always one that gets a lot of repetition, but I love playing that song live. I really do it. So if we're judging it by that merit, maybe that one. Yeah,
that honestly might be my favorite off of No Closer for sure.
That's cool. I feel like, I'm hearing a lot of people say that recently. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Cardinals is great too, but I mean, Blues is just its own thing. I love that.
Yeah.
All right.
Best place to get a Philly cheesesteak in Philadelphia.
Ooh, honestly, recently, Joe's Soda Shop, which I live in Fishtown, and that's one of the only places in the city that they have a dope vegan cheesesteak. So my girlfriend is vegan. So that's actually amazing that they offer that. And if I ever leave Philly, I will highly miss having that in such close proximity. Outside of that, the like age-old Pat's Geno's debate. I'd be more of a Pat's guy, but also some questionable, like signage on there that seems a little outdated in terms of like, you got to speak English, know your order. It's like, it feels a little threatening, to a certain degree, but that the Pat's cheesesteak is certainly the one I prefer over the Geno's if we have to split hairs on it. Yeah.
Favorite movie?
That Thing You Do.
Favorite horror movie?
Ooh, Cabin in the Woods.
Best record store?
Ooh, I wanted to say Amoeba, but also I gotta bet. Honestly, Looney Tunes.
Where's that one?
Long Island.
Long Island.
We've done so many. We've done so many in-stores there, almost every album over the years, and the people that work there, the owners, it's just so cool, such a cool shop, and the way that they go about it, and they really care about the fans and people that come out to those and patronize the shop. So shout out Looney Tunes and Long Island, definitely go and support.
How is that vintage vinyl one, the one you guys play the acoustic ones at?
Also cool. I mean, honestly, at this point, any record store that's still doing in stores like that and trying to do it right, I love, and I think you get something out of it, more so than just going to, the Apple iTunes store, and using an algorithm to suggest stuff. But yeah, it's the time we live in. But I would definitely say Looney Tunes is my favorite in terms of the one that we've repeatedly gone back to.
Okay.
Favorite song off of Get Stoked?
Is that a pass, or do I have a pass button?
Yeah, It's okay.
Oh man.
No, you know what? Honestly, I'll say My Geraldine, because that was the first song that we, wrote for that was on that album in that sense, that I like really remember writing and having a lot of good laughs in the process of writing it. So I'll say My Geraldine Lies Over the Delaware.
Yeah, fuck Route 9.
Yes, precisely.
Touring, touring or recording?
At this point in my career, recording.
Yeah, kind of
But
figured.
yeah, but there's something about touring that I wouldn't be who I was, and a lot of things about my life wouldn't be the way they are if I hadn't spent so many years touring. So I wouldn't trade it for the world. But I think, at this point in my life, I'm way more interested in the recording process, and growing from that capacity for sure. But you can't take away the live show element of what this band does by any means. So we will still continue doing that, obviously, for the foreseeable future.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Favorite Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties song?
Ooh, this is good. And honestly, I know a couple of these because I actually played bass for a UK show randomly years ago. Cherry Red, I guess.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, yeah. I think because I had fun specifically playing that one and noodling around. So yeah.
Yeah. Fender or Gibson?
Ooh, I play both, honestly. The first damn, this is tough. The first like real nice guitar I remember getting was a Fender Strat. It was like a natural maple wood maple neck Strat. However, the second nice guitar I think I got when I was probably like 16 was a Desert Burst Les Paul Studio, and that thing has been on probably the most Wonder Years records. I just pulled it out again for those 2 tracks last year. That combination with the Marshall Jubilee that I play, that I've had for years and toured with a lot. I don't play live. I'm actually playing through a Fender Supersonic, so you can see why I like it. The back and forth. It's almost the yin and the yang of my guitar perspective in a lot of ways. I'll say Fender though, just because there's like the Fender stuff is what's always close by. So it's super reliable in that sense. And there's nothing like a great Fender sounding clean amp as well, which the older I get, I think I love exploring some of that like kind of really lush, clean and push clean stuff that I think Fender is notorious for. A lot of companies can do high gain and humbuckers, but something about that really jazzes me up.
I never personally had a Fender. I have a Gibson Les Paul, and I just got a Taylor acoustic.
Beautiful sounding instrument.
Beautiful.
I have a vintage Japanese 1985 Fender Squier Strat, and the tone just sounds magnificent in it. I mean, even it's vintage. I mean, I like the vintage guitars, but I mean, Gibson is great too, though. I mean, I don't want to ever discredit Gibson, though.
What's the one that Mike left behind that I have that I put like the heavy strings on?
The LTD.
Yeah. I got one of those to play like Code Orange and shit.
Yeah, I mean, like the ESP stuff, even, it's funny for recording, and I could dive in even further on this, so I'll cut myself off after this. But some of that stuff, and like people, I feel like nowadays the polarizing conversations, especially in recording and live music, are 2 things. One of them is like real amps versus amp sims. And of which I say there's a time and a place for all. I'm not, let's be realistic and make the best out of what we have. And then it's, it's the real amps versus fake amps. And then it's kind of this, like Evertune versus not Evertune system. For those of you familiar with guitar stuff, it's basically just like imagine like a robot spring-loaded mechanism that keeps your guitar perfectly intonated and in tune.
Really?
Yeah. So and ESP had started putting out guitars with those like proprietary systems, and you can get them put in existing guitars. But we have 1 or 2 as Wonder Year stuff. It's like that is just like anything else. It's a tool, and sometimes if you've ever tried to record guitar, I've recorded plenty. It can get hairy, especially the more guitars you try to stack on a track. And so for that reason, there's a time and a place for both things, for bendy notes and just I need this to stay in tune. So yeah.
Say goodbye to the snarks.
Oh, never. I've got 1,000 of them. They're like, ants, dude. A truly great investment. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Indoors or outdoors?
Ooh, outdoors, but this like if I could take what I do to a somehow sonically isolated outdoor scenario, like a studio all made of glass walls, that's treated, that would be my ideal. Because yeah, sometimes being in a studio without seeing daylight for what feels like days on end can grind a person down. But overall, I think outside when the weather's nice. Yeah.
Green Day or Blink 182?
Ooh, dude, wow. Honestly, Green Day. I'll say Green Day because Dookie like hit me a little bit harder
Yeah.
before I really, when I was young. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I tried to cover When I Come Around before, like way more than any like Blink song, but before I got rolling. So
Yeah. Los Angeles or New York?
Uh, New York, I think because I have a more of a relationship with it, having known a bunch of people that live in Brooklyn and playing it a bit more often and frequently over the years. However, I will say because we've done so many records, it's not necessarily LA proper, but like Seal Beach, Huntington Beach, and that Southern California stretch right below LA. And I'm picking that because that is like very tied to nostalgia for me. So
And grape jelly or strawberry jelly?
strawberry. Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
I'm a grape person, but
Yep.
most people say strawberry.
That's okay. No hate on the grape, but the strawberry, I figure part of me is like, hey, jelly's great. And most people are like, why you got to fuck with it? And Ty, like, have you tried strawberry jelly? That's where, that's my thought. But, yeah.
So where can your fans find you? You got like social media plugs?
Sure. Yeah. Instagram is probably where you'll most frequently find me nosing around. Case_rock is the old handle. And and then through any website, CaseyCavaliere.com. The studio site is just truelevelstudio.com. And I mean, I think those are probably the best places to reach out. And if you can't find me one of those places, then I don't know where I am. So that's probably the easiest way.
Awesome. Well, wish you the best of luck for the rest of the year, and keep in touch.
Cool.
Thanks for doing this, man.
Thank you for having me on, gentlemen. It's
sure,
been a
of
pleasure.
course.
It's been fun. And yes, good luck with everything this year for you as well.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Awesome.
All right.
Well,
Later.
we'll be seeing you soon. Hell yeah, man.
Cheers.